Welcome back. What is your name, sir?
My name is Anil Koshy. I'm a social studies teacher at McQueen High School.
What classes do you teach at McQueen High School?
I teach AP US History and United States Government. I've also taught world geography in the past.
Okay, cool. This rolls right into one of the questions that other teachers wanted to know about you is why did you choose history and why did you choose to teach the classes that you teach?
As far as I've always had a really big interest in history. I honestly don't expect students to remember things that I teach for a long time. It's really hard to remember things. And I always relate that to TV shows.
Okay.
You can watch a TV show, but 2 days later, can you say exactly what was in it?
Not at all.
Not at all. But I can remember things back that I learned in 5th grade from U.S. history.
And is that because you love history so much?
I just was always attracted to things about U.S. history.
So not even just history, but U.S. history specifically.
It became specifically about U.S. history, although what really put it over the top was my world history teacher in high school.
Okay.
His name's Rick Squires. He taught at Worcester for a long time. He was actually an administrator here at McQueen before he retired. But the way he taught and the energy that he brought to the class really just put it over the top. But it was always U.S. history that I really enjoyed. And then when I was in college, I really tended to focus more on U.S. history stuff. It wasn't until I had to take something to round out what I needed to do to finish. So one of my last classes that I had to take was a European civilization class, and the professor was phenomenal.
What does European civilization even encapsulate?
Well, so this one, it was European Civilization 105. There's a 105 and a 106. 105 is the early period. So this talks about Greek history, Egyptian history, Roman history. And then from there, it goes into 106, which will be like the Middle Ages and the Enlightenment, all that stuff. And so I needed something to round it out. And so I took 105, and she was it was just amazing. And I loved it. And so if I taught world history, that would have been fine, because I could have gone back to the things that she taught. But when I got my job here, it was U.S. history was my, I had U.S. history and I had 2 classes of geography. And so I taught that for a couple of years, and then they moved me out of the geography and into the government. And usually U.S. history and government kind of tie in because there's a lot of similarities there. And
absolutely.
A lot of same content area. And so in AP U.S. history, I went and got my master's degree. And so I became more of an interest in U.S. history. And then eventually I was able to start teaching AP.
Okay, that's wonderful. You said that you got your master's, and I know that you told me, I don't know if I'm using the right terminology here, but your master's thesis is on the Transcontinental Railroad?
Correct.
Why the Transcontinental Railroad?
So after I got married,
I have a lot of questions about that too.
My wife and I decided to go to Sacramento.
Okay.
And my wife is really good about finding things for us to do, and it's not even something that I thought of, but there's a museum, a train museum in Sacramento. Okay. And it's specifically on the Transcontinental Railroad. We went to the museum and I loved it. I had such a great time. And so and I knew I wanted to do my thesis on
the Transcontinental
Railroad. What I wanted to do was inventions of the late 1800s. Starting with the Transcontinental Railroad. And then the professors, when I presented my idea, said, no, that's way too many things. Pick one invention. and focus on that.
And you said the trains.
The trains, Transcontinental, specifically the Transcontinental Railroad line.
Okay. Can you give me some insight as to how pivotal the Transcontinental Railroad is for our listeners in case they don't know how crazy it was?
It really connects the country together, because for people to get from the East Coast to the West Coast, we're talking 6 weeks minimum journey.
Okay.
By horseback, by foot, whatever. And this cuts the time tremendously. And so it really connects the country together, but then it does other things. It expands the railroad system in the West, where you have a ton of other railroads. It helps bring people out to the West, and so the government creates laws that help the Transcontinental Railroad with money and land given to the railroad companies. And then they create laws to be able to get people out to the West.
Oh, yeah, those like Homestead Acts where they said, if you move out there, we'll pay you. We'll give you this much land at 40 acres and a mule or whatever.
Well, it was 120 acres for about a $5 registration fee.
$5 is...
it's probably, I don't know, my guess is about $200, $300 now.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure, but, it's more. But $5 was a good amount, so it helps bring people out to the West.
Okay.
You also have the Morrill Land Grant, which sets up colleges in the West.
I remember that. Yeah, they said they would pay colleges to go get land out there.
No. So it would give land to colleges, to states, to start colleges and universities, but they had to focus their research and development on something that would help the West. So you got farming and mining and livestock, and that's why the mining school at the University of Nevada is such a big deal.
Because it's still running?
It's the second best mining school in the world.
Oh, what's the first?
Colorado School of Mines.
Oh, that makes sense. It's in the name.
Yeah, Mr. Hilliard and Mrs. Hilliard, who's both teacher, their son, Crispin, graduated.
I was good
2020,
friends with Crispin, yeah.
And so that's where he went to school.
That's cute. Wow. Okay. You teach nowadays, and this is a very interesting moment in history. I'd like to ask you, what is the biggest change that COVID has had on teaching? And what, like personally in your life with your teaching, what has changed the most?
Well, I think the amount of time that I'm given to be able to really teach. The first year that I taught here, we only had, I want to say it was like 49 minutes per class. And as a first year teacher, it's not a big deal because you're struggling to be able to fill those 49 minutes, just get everything done. And then the very next year, the principal changed it to where we could have 55 minutes per class.
Is it a huge difference in terms of over the years?
It is a huge difference because you go from 49 minutes to 55 minutes per class. That's 6 minutes a day times 30 minutes a week.
Yeah.
It was amazing how much more I could teach with that much amount of time.
Yeah, and then you're talking like 26 weeks of school.
Yeah.
Just about. And then you're 30 minutes for every those weeks. That's hours and hours that you get to spend with those kids more.
Right.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, when I first started teaching AP, the first 2 or 3 years, I gave my students 15 essays to write. Now, that's a lot of essays for them to write. It's a lot of them for me to grade. But I noticed that my students, when I was doing that, did really well on the writing portion. They were all, except for the very first year, which I didn't teach it as well. After the first year, my students always finished in the top, above the national average in the writing.
Okay.
Now they don't do that because I don't get to teach as much as I once did. We've lost so many minutes over the last few years that it's really hard to be able to get them the skills and the information that they need to be able to do as good a job.
Okay. And do you, as a teacher, feel guilty? I don't know if guilty is the right word, but when you know that you could do better if you were just given a little bit more time, do you feel bad at the end of the year when they don't perform as optimally as you hope they would?
Yeah, I always look at my teaching and I always try and do something to make myself better. Yeah, I do. I mean, I think back to the third and fourth groups that I had. Their pass rates were so good, and then in the next few years when it wasn't as good, which is when we started losing time, I started looking, okay, what am I doing differently? What am I doing differently? And it goes back to the number of essays that I gave them, the amount of writing. We just don't have the time to do it.
That's true. And I remember when I took AP US History, granted, that was the first year that COVID had hit schools.
Right.
So we had school every other day. And then you were giving lectures to a whole another separate set of kids. And it was the same lecture that we had until you figured out that we could just do them sequentially. It was such a mess, and it was hard to teach. And there was no way that you could give us 15 essays that year and still teach everything that you wanted to teach and perfect the essays,
right,
and give us advice and grade all that stuff, and then only have us half of the year.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. But it's good to know that, of course, I don't know if every teacher looks at it the way that you look at it, but I appreciate the fact that you care about your students enough to look back at how you're teaching it. Do you think that that's common among teachers to approach their teaching instead of saying like, oh my God, my students suck at learning? It's like, wow, I really suck at teaching this.
Yeah, for the most part, I mean, I can really only speak for my department because that's who I spend the most time with.
Of course.
And I would say within my department, it is very common that because standing outside, I stand outside and talk to Mrs. Moore every day, and probably 3-4 times a day. And we always sit there and talk about our teaching, what's going on with our classes, what are the things we can do. And we do a lot of common assignments, especially with government. And we talk about, well, how did it go for you? How did it go for you this year versus last year? How's it going for you? What would you do differently? So we talk about that stuff all the time.
Okay, and I think your job is especially hard, and I think we should take this moment to appreciate our teachers. Your job is especially hard because you have a different set of kids every year.
Yes.
It's not like, wow, this worked really well last year, so I'm just going to do it again. Sometimes you can't, simply because it's a different set of kids and they need a different set of teaching.
Correct.
So your job is ever changing, and there's like never a solution that you can take to make it easy for you.
Yeah, that's why statistics about how things work in a classroom don't always work, because the group like my government students this year are so different than the government students I had last year. And even especially because of the COVID year and having the hybrid schedule. But I think even without that, I think the kids would be very different. Just because you go from year to year and they're different kids.
Yeah, I would also like to point out that the kids, or I would like to ask and highlight that a lot of the kids coming into high school now haven't really experienced a real freshman year or even like their 8th grade year. So they haven't been in a classroom in a long time.
Yeah.
And you can tell that it's different, and they don't know how to talk, and they don't know how to communicate, and it's hard for them. And it's so odd to see something like that. I think that's all the questions I had on teaching. Oh, what is it like teaching at the school that your daughters go to?
I think it's a great experience. And Mr. Case, who used to teach German here, he went through the same thing. His 2 kids, he had twins. And I talked to him before my older daughter was in my class, literally like the day before. And he said, everything's going to be great. This is a very unique experience for you. We get to do something that very few people in our profession get to experience, and that is having our kids in our classroom. And it may be tough during the year, but when you're done, it will be something that is absolutely worthwhile.
Okay, why?
Because your kids get to see you in a different light. They see you at home as dad, or for my younger one, they see me as the coach for the soccer team. And I'm very different in front of my students than I am at home with my children.
Of course.
So you can tell kids, your children, sorry, not kids. You can tell your children about certain things, and this is a normal, natural reaction. Is that you're not going to necessarily believe that your parents know anything or know the right answer.
Yeah.
So when they're in your classroom and you're teaching, and it's a different feel, they start seeing you in a different light.
Oh, maybe Dad does know something about
Yeah.
this American history stuff that he went to college for.
Yeah, and I did see my relationship with my older daughter change quite a bit for the better after she was in my class.
Did your daughter's friends ever accidentally snitch on her for doing anything? Because
No.
Oh,
No,
okay,
no,
good.
no.
It's good that they didn't do that.
And they know better than to involve my daughter in anything.
Oh, okay. Mr. Koshy will come headhunting.
Yes.
Another question. What is it like being a father with your daughters at high school and knowing that there are boys around them?
So you always hear the comments, "Oh, you have daughters, you better get your shotgun, you better be careful what you're doing." But I saw Harry Connick Jr. do an interview once, and he has 2 daughters, and he said he always found that insulting to him because it makes it sound like he and his wife have not done their job as parents
To teach their daughters
to teach their
choose the
daughters the right thing.
guys.
Yes, to do the right thing. And I thought about it, and I said, he's absolutely right. My girls, we've taught them what we can teach them about how to pick friends and how to go about your life and being aware of your surroundings. And they've done a good job of being aware of what's around them. Yeah, we'll take them to shopping or something. We always told them, okay, you've got to stay close to us. When they were little, you have to stay close to us. I remember an incident. We were in a store and we were walking through, and I see the same guy like 5 times. And as we were leaving, I see the guy again. So instead of going out to the car, I turn around and I go right back into the store. But this was a great lesson for my girls to be aware of their surroundings. If you see the same person following you around, find a safe place to go. So, I trust my girls to the point where I know that they are going to make good decisions. And you have to trust yourself as a parent to do the right thing, to teach them the right things so that they can make the right decisions.
That's well said. Very well said. I think you're absolutely right, because if you're the father who has to get the shotgun and helicopter dad your daughter, then clearly you didn't teach her what decisions she should be making, opposed to or not opposed to, and that's why you're there.
Yeah.
Helicoptering your daughter.
Right.
That's wonderful. How old were you when you had your first daughter?
35.
That's awesome. And what was it like?
It's a great experience, but you don't really make a connection with your child when you're a man. You don't make a connection with your child until after they're born and you get involved. And, one of the things I always told myself was that I was going to be as involved as a dad as I possibly could be, and from the time that they were born. So I wanted to make sure that I was involved in giving them baths and changing their diapers and doing all of these things with them. So that's when you actually start to make a connection. And my wife had a great example, and she said that for women it's different because they've had that connection from the beginning
when they find out that
they're pregnant. But for the dads, you don't get that connection until after they're born. And so it's really important for dads to be that involved with their kids. Do everything with the kids, do everything, sharing the responsibilities with your spouse, and that's going to help you create a connection.
That is adorably said. Wow. Did you panic when you found out that your wife was pregnant? Like, what went through your head?
So when I found out she was pregnant, no, we was really excited.
Oh, really?
But, yeah, we were very excited, but we made a plan to not say anything to anybody until after 3 months.
Okay.
Because that's the safe period.
Yeah, because miscarriages usually happen within that period. Yes.
Right. So I had to hide it. And, and I'm dropping clues here to people. We had one English teacher, and I told, she said, when are you going to have a baby? When are you going to have a baby? And I said, how about July 17th? I'll have a baby. And that was actually my daughter's due date.
Oh, yeah.
And she didn't get it. I would drop hints like that. And the only person that got it was one of our former students. She played basketball for me. She's actually a recruiter at the University of Nevada now.
Oh, okay.
And this was after the 3-month period. And I'm standing outside my door. She comes walking by and she said to me, hey, when are you guys going to have a baby? I said, how about July 17th? She walks away about 20 feet, stops, and turns around and comes back and says, is your wife pregnant? She's the only one that got it. But beautiful. Then as soon as the 3 months, that very next day, I'm telling everybody.
Yeah. That's so cool. I wanted to ask why you wanted to be such an engaged father. And you don't have to answer this question as personal as it is, but does that go down to what your relationship was with your father?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So my father... there's a song. It's the song is called "Cats in the Cradle," and I would refer my dad's relationship with me to being a very cats in the cradle type relationship, and what that means is it's a song from the 1970s.
Okay.
Where the dad and the son have absolutely no relationship, where the dad is always off doing other things and not spending time with the kid, and then when the kid grows up, he moves away with his family and now doesn't have time for the son. So I never wanted that kind of a relationship with my kids. I wanted to make sure that I was always there. And I try not to miss anything.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah. The only things that I've missed because I started coaching my younger daughter in soccer, I've missed a few of my older daughter's games and a couple of concerts here and there, but that's only because we were at my younger daughter and I were at a game and we couldn't make both things work.
Well, that's super cool. I mean, obviously, that I don't have a dad.
Yeah.
I didn't, I didn't experience that. So I really appreciate the effort that you put in with your daughters. I said the same thing to Mr. Fitz and his daughter. It's really cool to see you guys work so hard to try and be good fathers. And I really appreciate that from a kid who has no dad. You know what I mean? All right. Enough about your children. How did you meet your wife? Tinder didn't exist back then, right?
No, it did not. So my wife actually was living in Canada.
Canada?
She was living in Edmonton, Canada. Originally, this started out what would be typically described as an arranged marriage. But
okay,
the way that it actually happened was that my wife is at home. She was living in Florida, then she moved back to Canada. My father-in-law tells her, do something with your life. Get married, do something. Here's a phone number. Why don't you just give that person a call? She was sure that it was going to be a lousy phone call. And so she calls me, and this is not going to make me look very good.
How does he have your phone number?
Well, I don't know. My father got a hold of him or found out, or I'm not sure how all of that worked out. But he ended up with my phone number, so she calls me. And it was my first year teaching. It was a Friday night.
So this is relatively recent in terms of...
Yeah, so we've been married 20 years now. 20 years last June.
Okay, and so this is 20 years ago. That's your first year teaching here in McQueen High
23. School. This is my 23rd year. So it's been about 22 years since, 22, 23 years since we started talking.
Oh, that's so crazy. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a Friday night. I'm exhausted. And it's October because first year teachers work really hard to get things going. And 8:00 at night, I'm in bed. I'm ready to go to sleep. And she called me at 8:00 at night and she's asking me what I'm doing. I said, well, I'm a first year teacher. I'm really tired. I'm about to go to sleep. So it makes me look like this real loser.
Wait a second. So you pick up the phone. Is it crazy? Like what? How did you know? Did you know that she was going to call you?
No. No caller ID.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. It's like there was no way for you to know who was on the other end. How did you know?
You just pick up the phone.
So you just pick up the phone and...
Phone rings, you pick up the phone. That's what we were used to.
You didn't... What did she say?
She's introduced herself and told me why she was calling, and we talked for about 15, 20 minutes, had a great conversation. And then we talked probably 2 or 3 times a week for a little while, probably for about a month and a half. And
She was still in Canada.
She was still in Canada.
So you met her online before meeting somebody online was a thing.
Yeah.
You had a long distance relationship.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, this is so cute.
Well, and by December, we were talking to each other every day, at least once a day.
This is so adorable.
Yeah. And then we talked to each other every single day until March. And
There was no way for you to know what she looked like.
We exchanged pictures.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I wondered if you guys were just like cute about it and didn't send each other photos.
No.
Okay.
No, we sent each other pictures. So March 17th, St. Patrick's Day.
Okay.
She came down here. We went out to dinner. We hung out that day. We spent basically the entire.
Do you remember what
together.
you ate for dinner?
I do not, but I remember we were both so nervous and so sick that we really didn't eat dinner.
Oh, that's so cute. Oh, you guys are a rom-com. This is so good. Oh, you guys are the Notebook #2. Oh, this is so cute. Okay, keep going, please.
So Saturday night, we had dinner with some friends of mine.
Yes.
Oh, all of them, actually.
Yeah.
So my poor wife, here she is with like 6 or 7 of my best friends. And for the first, she's been with me for like 24 hours, and she's here meeting these people.
Yes.
And they hit it off.
That's awesome. That's all you could ask for.
Yeah,
really.
they loved her. And then the next day, I asked her to marry me.
The next day.
Sunday.
So how many years or months worth of talking over the phone did you guys do?
Months. So October. It was toward about the October 20th. My wife remembers the exact date. I don't. It's right about the 20th.
Oh, man.
And then March 19th was when we were engaged.
Wow.
And then we talked every single day.
Wow. That is so... When did you get to see her next?
19th. She came back for a weekend, I think in May. So just a couple of months later.
Okay.
And then in the summer, I worked a summer job with the U.S. Census Bureau.
Yeah.
And I was teaching summer school classes.
Okay.
So I worked until summer school was over, which was towards the end of July. And then there was about a 2 or 3 week break before I had to be back at work to start school. So I spent those 2 or 3 weeks in Edmonton with her and her family.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Wow. I respect you so much right now to know that you had a phone call relationship before Snapchat existed.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Wow. Oh, wow. I don't even know what to ask you now. Everything is completely gone out the window. That's so pretty. Okay. How many kids do you have?
2. We have 2 girls.
Okay. Did you want a son? Like, did you care about the gender of your kid before?
No, we thought, well, they told us the oldest was a girl. We didn't believe them. We were convinced that the first one was going to be a boy.
Why?
I don't know. My wife just had a feeling. We just kind of had a feeling that the oldest was going to be a boy. And there's a lot of boys. Like, I come from a family of boys.
Okay.
There's a lot of boys on her dad's side. And so we really thought they were going to be boys. But you know what? In the end, it doesn't really matter.
I mean, of course it doesn't matter. You know, it matters how you raise your kid. I mean, of course, it's like, there's a lot of things that she has to explain to your daughter that you can't explain to your daughter.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you can't be a good father.
Right.
And that's apparent in what you've taught us, obviously. Do you have any hobbies? Like, do you play golf?
No, I don't. Hobbies. I haven't done baking in a long time, but I really do like to bake.
Like to bake? Oh,
Yeah.
What are your favorite pastries?
I used to make cheesecakes all the time. So my college job was working in a bookstore, and those people that my wife met, they were all people that worked with me at
in the bookstore.
Yeah. And 2 of them, my wife just went on a trip with 2 of them to Mexico for her 50th birthday.
That's so cute.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so adorable.
What was I saying? So, hobbies. When we got together as for parties in the from the bookstore gang, I would always make cheesecakes,
Cheesecakes.
and I just haven't done it for a while. Honestly, I've coaching. I love coaching. It's hard. In some ways, it's harder than the teaching piece because there's so many variables that can happen in coaching.
Can you explain to me why? Like what variables?
Well, because in a game situation, you never know what's going to happen. You just have to wait and wait and wait for the result, and it's really hard. In a classroom, when you lay out your lesson, you know where you want it to go. And if it doesn't work, then you might have another class period and you try and change things around.
And then
try
you
make
know
it
how to
work.
do it the next time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you make notes, and then maybe next year you do some different things.
Okay. But with a game, you don't know how the game is going to go.
No, because the other side is trying to do exactly what you're trying to do, which is win.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you told me that you never actually wanted to be a soccer coach. You were a basketball coach.
Yeah, no, my girls had absolutely no intention of doing anything basketball related because I think they've known that I was a basketball coach. And my oldest daughter, we wanted her to do something athletic.
Okay.
And so soccer was the thing that she was willing to do.
Willing. Okay.
Yes, willing to do. And then she does some other things. She plays in the orchestra. She's pretty well rounded. My younger daughter does a lot of similar things. The one thing she doesn't do is speech and debate that my older daughter did.
Oh, okay.
But my younger daughter loves soccer, wants to keep playing, and then we've just had a conversation that she may want to do some coaching once she's done playing.
Oh, that's so cute. Wonderful.
Yeah. So
she's gonna be like that.
And so that's something I will help her with is help her with some, once I'm done here and she wants to coach, we'll go take over a rec team or something, and I'll run the team. She'll do the coaching, and then get her some experience.
Wow, that's such a cool goal to have. What period in your child's life is the hardest to parent?
Middle school through about sophomore year.
After that, it's kind of easy.
It's a little easier because they become more adults. And you see that when I get my juniors at the beginning of the year, you know that they're really young. They're still sophomores. But you go through them through the course of the year, and by the end of their junior year, they're such different people. They're so much more mature. There's a lot of things that they just get. And then going into their senior year, they're adults. They're adults ready to they may not want to. They may not want to graduate, and some of them don't. Some of them are very scared to do that. But you could tell that they have the ability to make good choices. Now, whether they do make good choices or not is a different thing, but they have that ability by the time they're seniors to do that.
I think that's an important distinction, is like at the beginning of junior year, not everybody is ready.
Yeah.
But usually by the end of junior year, everybody understands what's going on. Yeah. And then when senior year rolls around, we're all just kind of rolling through.
Yeah.
It makes sense that middle school to sophomore year would be the most confusing, because puberty is weird.
There's a lot of hormones associated.
Exactly.
The principal that we had before we had Mrs. Maribel, her daughter was in my class, and so I was talking to, and it's Mrs. Denning. I was talking to Mrs. Denning about kids being in middle school, because that's when my older daughter was starting 6th grade, and it could be a little frustrating. But Mrs. Denning said, her daughter's name is Carly. Carly's a really nice girl, but middle school is when they're meanest. Even really nice kids like Carly, it's just that environment. It's just a hormone-ridden environment.
Yeah.
It's hard for them to get out of it.
It's understandable.
Yeah.
Oh, I had another question in my mind. It's running from me now, but this is a long piece of silence that I'm gonna have to cut out of my episode. You've been a really great guest. I apologize for not having enough questions. I thought I had way. What is something, maybe the largest thing that you've ever learned from a student?
Oh,
Because obviously teachers teach, but teachers also learn.
and I will tell you, it was a reality check on my part about our school population.
Okay.
It was the student was in my AP class. It was after the AP test was over. So we're trying to get ready for these kids going into their senior year, and I was a class advisor. And we were talking about the shirts that everybody has, the white shirts with everybody's name on the back.
Yeah.
And
the senior jerseys.
not the jerseys.
Oh, okay.
Just all of the names together, not just individual
Oh,
names.
okay.
Yeah. So everybody will get that at the end of the year. So I'm talking to the class officers, and I said, you guys have to make a decision. You either need to charge them $5, or you need to decide if you're going to just give it out to them for free. And this student said to me, Mr. Koshy, we need to give these shirts out to everybody, because even at a school like McLean, there are going to be kids that can't afford $5.
Absolutely.
And she said, we don't know who those kids are.
Absolutely.
But they exist, and we may never know who those kids are, and we don't want to know who they are. So we need to make sure and give those shirts out. And this was, she graduated in 2013. And since then, we've always given out the shirts to the kids. And ironically enough, I actually ran into her parents at the grocery store just a few weeks ago. And I told them, this is what your daughter did for me. This is
wow.
Yeah.
So this isn't the first time you talked about this recently.
Oh no.
Wow.
That one, and then there's one other one where I had a senior who was one class short. And I always tell my seniors at the end of the year, don't come back. Don't come back to say hi. Don't come back, hang around. Don't move on with your life. Okay, you've done high school. It's time for you to go. And this student was just one class short. They needed to get a math class. And I said to her the very last day, I said, I want you to finish. And I want you to promise me that you'll finish. And she said, Mr. Koshy, I promise you I will finish. She went through the summer. She comes back to see me in September. And she said, I know you told us not to come back, but I promised you that I was going to finish my degree, get my math credit, and finish. And I just wanted to tell you that I finished.
Wow. I would have cried.
It was a huge impact on me. And I've never seen her since, but, and that's okay. That's okay. She's never contacted me ever since then, and that's okay. She needs to move on with her life. But it made me so happy that she came back and just told me that.
Wow. That's pivotal. That is a life-changing moment right there.
Yeah, it really is.
Wow, we're about to hear the 10-minute bell in a couple seconds here, so I'll cut the audio.
Oh, no, we won't have the bell in here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's over. That's just over in the PE wing.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, yeah, we don't need the 10-minute bell. Who needs that? Wow, that is crazy. I'm very glad that you remember these things. And I think it's also very, I don't know if intelligent is the right word. It's very wise of you to tell your kids to move on from high school. Mm-hmm. I think all high schoolers, regardless of if they think they do or not, we all really look up to you guys. And we want to come back and show you guys all of these accomplishments, especially those of us who maybe don't have the greatest relationships with our parents want to come see our parents at school and show them what we've done. But it's better for us to just move on and finish life. We're not done. The job's not finished, as Kobe would say. The job's not finished. Go finish the job.
So on that, Mrs. Lavely did the graduation speech several years ago.
Yes.
And that was the basis of her graduation speech. I remember her graduation.
Kobe saying job's not finished?
Not Joby, not Joby, not Kobe, but your students told her, "Oh, this is the end." And she said in the graduation speech, "This is not the end.
Of course,
this is the beginning."
Yeah.
And I just remember it was that what she said to those students was very impactful.
Yeah. In a similar manner, I believe Neil deGrasse Tyson gave a graduation speech at like Columbia or something, which I'm going to Columbia. And he goes, the commencement speech, which is the speech I'm giving right now. Does anybody know what commencement means? Someone in the audience says, the end. And he's like, no, it's not the end. The commencement means the beginning. And this is the beginning. And like, that's so beautiful to understand that even though high school is ending, it's not the ending. We're not even halfway through the story yet. This is just the end of the exposition. And that is beautiful. Wow. This has been a wonderful episode. Thank you so much, Mr. Koshy.
Yeah, this is fun.
Would you be open to doing this again?
Yeah.
On another date when I figure out more questions that I want to ask you?
Sure.
You've given me way more information than I could have asked for from any guest, and way more insightful. And I'm so crazed by the fact that you met your wife on a phone call on some October date, and it's 8:00 and you're trying to go to sleep, and you just get a phone call and you pick it up. That's so beautiful. That is so cool. We get to vote every year on who the senior speech is, right?
There's a faculty member, so it's always the valedictorian, the salutatorian, and then the faculty speaker, and the students get to vote on who it's going to be.
All right. Oh, geez. Oh, wow. This is tough. Man, I'll probably vote Miss Lavely, but then, this is crazy. Have you ever gotten to do it?
Yeah, I've done it for the last 2 years.
I respect it. Yeah, I think you do a really great job as a teacher, and I think especially the seniors, because you're the government teacher, I think senior teachers probably have a better chance of getting it because they're more recent.
Yeah, usually. And I think Miss Lavely was teaching seniors, and she had yearbook at that time. Yeah, she's still doing yearbook.
Yeah, she's still doing yearbook, but of course.
But that was a big part of it.
That's so cool. I didn't realize, and in the same way that kids don't fill out the booster scholarship, kids also don't vote for stuff like prom king or winter fair.
Well, we try and do it in the government classes.
Voting?
Yeah, the voting for, there's a couple of things that students vote for at the same time. The graduation speaker is one of them, but there's one or two other things that are associated with it. So we used to do it on paper, and all the government teachers would just hand it out, and we would all make them do it.
And then you would count. Okay, well, that's a better system. At least have them vote.
Yeah. Yeah, and now we just have them pull out their phones and they do it on that voting for schools.
All right. Quick question before we end the episode. Here's the one political question you're going to get. Is it better to have uneducated and uninformed people vote, or to have less people vote?
Ooh, that are more educated?
Not more educated, but maybe more motivated, because like an uninformed person has no idea what's going on, but maybe someone who has super biased media, like watches Fox News all day or whatever, like CNN, and votes along those lines, even though they're uninformed in a different manner. Which one is better?
I think I would probably rather have the more informed person vote, as opposed to just having a bunch of people go out and vote when they don't even know what they're voting for.
Because then it seems like more of a lottery?
Yeah, well, then it seems more like they're just voting to vote, and it's not. It doesn't mean anything.
It's just something that they have to do. Okay. So
that's a tough question.
Of course, it's a tough question.
Yeah, you want a lot of people involved, but you also want them to know what they're voting for.
Absolutely, and last year, and I remember this is something that I argued for, because at the end of the year, you have us have those discussions. Mm-hmm. And the one that my group had was on the Electoral College and the validity of the Electoral College. I think the concept of an Electoral College kind of makes sense, because we don't want everybody to vote because a lot of people have no idea, don't even have the time to pay attention to politics. So their vote probably isn't a good idea to have them vote because they have no idea what's going on. But then maybe there's like, and as we've seen in reality, like there's an implicit bias where those who are more educated vote a certain way, or because they feel a certain way, and there are more of those people, then it's not equal. Can I get your opinion on whether or not the Electoral College should still be a thing? You never said last year because you try not to talk about it.
Yeah, I think the way it was originally set up is not the way that it works now. Because originally the way that it was set up was to pick these electors, and then they would make their own decision based on who they thought was going to be the best president.
Yeah, and I was going to ask, like, how did that change? Because it's supposed to be we pick people that we think are smart enough to pick for us,
right?
And then they pick.
So what started happening was that the Electoral College was tied to the popular vote, and it turned out that the popular vote was picking the president, but then you had some electors go in and not vote for who they were supposed to vote for. They would just pick random people.
But my question is, like, when does that change to where instead of picking the people who make the decision, like, when does it change to we tell you who you have to pick?
I think the law started changing in the 20th century.
Okay, so relatively recently.
It's relatively recent, and later in the 20th century, because now, if it's not all the states, it's most of the states have laws that say if you're an elector, you must vote for the person that the people chose you to vote for.
Okay. Well, I guess in that case, okay, I think this question is far too large to quantify in 2 minutes. We'll come back at a later date, but I think the problem is that it's not just the Electoral College that makes it difficult. You have like gerrymandering where it ruins the whole point of the Electoral College because I can just draw the lines a different way so that every time we vote, I win anyways.
Yeah.
But enough of that. It has been wonderful talking to you, Mr. Koshy.
Oh, thank you. That's been fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. And what is a number? This is the way I do my podcast, is every guest gets to pick a number. And every time they come back on the podcast, it's that same number. Because if I want somebody to be able to find the entire archive of just that person, it comes up when they search up that number. What is your number?
12.
12? I can give you 12. That's okay. 100% you can have 12. Why 12?
It's Roger Staubach.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Mr. Quarterback.
Yeah.